Hello everybody, it's Kate Spencer and
Soul.
or as I like to call her, Emma the Trumpet. Now we're here with a podcast and we had a little chat before we pressed record. I had a coughing fit, which Emma pressed pause and then glared at me and went, I'm going to have to crop that out now. So yeah, here we are with said podcast, and we've decided that we're going to talk about something that we've heard lots and lots of times in the media, but nobody knows what the feck it means.
Is this like when Dad said, they say you've got a soul?
Yeah. Who's they?
Who's they?
They have been talking about this for a while, and when I say it, you're all going to have your own perception of it, but nobody actually knows what the feck it is. And it's two words that I'm going to throw at you now. Ready, Emma? New normal. What the feck is new normal? What was old normal anyway? What was that all about?
I don't know if we've ever been normal per se.
Don't you dare claim to be normal.
I know.
That's in inverted commas. So yeah, we started talking about this, and you know, the whole concept of what is new normal, mental healthiness. We don't say that with any disrespect. It's something that we've integrated into our language, and we say quite a lot to each other. I'm feeling a bit mental healthy today.
True.
We know what we mean. Everyone's a bit mental healthy, and what actually new normal means. So a couple of things I'll throw into the mix here. The great pause.
Ooh.
And is that it? Just ooh.
Well, I'm thinking about my own personal great pause. I know you meant on a kind of...
When you didn't work for 3 months because you were moving house, that pause.
No, different pause.
Oh, there's been another one.
When it's...
Shit, I missed that.
I'll tell you what, my weirdest, and this isn't even great pause, it was the kind of nervousness around first lockdown when I thought I'd be okay if I could walk around my postage stamp back garden 5 times on a morning in the sunshine.
So you can see why mental healthy has been integrated into our vocabulary. Straight away there's a bit of validation for everyone listening.
For about 3 days, and the sun kind of came round in...
Segment. It was a segment.
Pie segments. A lot of my language is about food, and you'll gather this.
The more you listen, the more you'll understand.
Yeah, and the more you see, the more you'll understand. Anyhow, so yeah, these pie segments, and if I timed it right at about 9 o'clock, I could kind of merge into these sunlight segments.
And is this around the time that I was saying, for God's sake, just go out for a walk?
I did not, I shit you not, right? I did not physically leave the house for about 9 weeks.
And all right, and I was really
gone.
worried about you at that point, and this is a really good example.
I was worried about myself.
This is a really good example because this was, I presume, and from what we talked about, because of fear and anxiety. And a lot of that was fueled by what you were consuming, and not pie, but, you know, consuming in terms of media and information. And we'll come back to that in a minute because we did do a talk about that, and we can maybe refresh on that a bit. But yeah, so you were really, really frightened, and your response to that was that you caved out and you stayed in because you perceived that that was keeping you safe. But what I saw was that rather than keeping you safe, it was possibly, you could argue, keeping you physically safe. It was actually causing you harm emotionally and mentally, and making you more fearful. And I totally understand why you did it. And I would say now you absolutely were not alone. And I think especially people who were in the vulnerable category, Emma's putting her fingers up outside the window because there's some noise. We've deliberately come in like what we consider to be the quietest and safest space now. Someone's cutting their grass. Piss off. People have got to get their jobs done, man. So
I know how big the grass is because it's a cemetery, dude. It's not just a garden. This will go on. You're not talking about somebody.
The
it's
grass
the cemetery.
will go on and on. So yeah, you weren't the only one because people were really, really frightened, and that had massive repercussions and impact. And yeah, mental healthiness. I said to someone in my life quite recently about everyone being a bit mental healthy, and they're the older generation, and they said mental health's always been there. You lot think you invented it, but it's always been there. We just didn't talk about it as much, which is relevant because we believe in talking about it, but we've got people in our life, I'm thinking about certain people in our life, who don't agree with talking about mental health or emotional well-being. They are of the shut up and get on with it generation.
There's nothing wrong with moo.
Yeah, and it's massively, massively unhelpful. But anyway, that's their way, and that's the way that they cope with it and whatnot. So, yeah, going from what was normal to what wasn't probably normal, like our version of normal, and we've all got a version of normal, haven't we, into this weird lockdown situation, on, off. Emma's response was to cave out and stay in.
Then move house. I actually have
moved house during the pandemic, which when you're anxious and fearful and things aren't great, wasn't great.
But bear
what
in
can I
mind,
say?
I've lived there 20 years. I've spent more of my life where I moved from than I spent in the first place. I could just say Siam, Prudder. I don't know why it's cryptic. All right, so I moved from Siam to Prudder, and that was never, I'm going to say, in the cards for me. That was a bit woo.
Yeah, she doesn't do woo, people.
A little bit. I dabble. But that was never on the cards for me. And something about the lockdown made me, and the fear of that, particularly the first early, because I was literally sanitising the postman. It was terrible. And something about that just made me think, I've got to do something big. And it wasn't necessarily, I can't say it was, I've got to go home, I've got to be with my family. I just knew that my life wasn't going to be this bloody house and this bloody life that was. And there was nothing particularly. I'd just done the house. I just got a new kitchen. I just made this house.
So your response to it was to cave out. You got really worried and scared, like most people did. And we were really worried about you. And then it was, I need a change. Oh,
big time.
Do you think that's like the equivalent of sort of, when people hit rock bottom and things can't get any worse and they think, shit, I've got to rise up, I've got to do something, something's got to change.
Definitely.
And it's not a case of, I'm going to decorate the sitting room. It was a case of, I've got to do something big.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And very un-Taurian as well. Very un-me. It involved every risk area of my life. Solicitors, finances, moving house.
Peopling.
I'm very risk averse. So it was pretty much, I took the pin out the hand grenade.
For you?
For me, personally. But yeah, I think for me it just, and it's interesting as well because I've also been through a big health thing maybe in 2011, and for a period of time after that I did feel a little bit indestructible and a bit like I can do anything, which actually led to a divorce, bizarrely. Sorry if you're listening.
Sorry if you're listening. I'm not laughing at the fact that she just got divorced.
Mocking. But these big things tend to happen in my life, probably a divorce and relocation, when I've been through something really, really difficult and maybe not recognised it at the time for how difficult it was. But they would be the two key times in my life when I've really taken massive action. COVID and a health thing in 2011.
So I think those two great big things, I would say, just speaking sort of personally and as an observer, that lockdown and COVID have been massive for many, many people on many, many different levels. And I think now as we're trying to navigate into, in the UK, we're recording this in May, and we are just starting now to return to what they would call new normal. As from this week, you're allowed to go and sit inside a cafe or a restaurant.
Or indeed my house.
Or indeed Emma's house, yes. Or you can book a holiday. You can go and see people. You can stay overnight in someone's house now as well. Is then part of the new rules.
I didn't even know that.
I think so anyway. So don't worry, I haven't got my toothbrush in my bag.
That's great, I know, right?
What we're having for tea.
I know.
So yeah, how do people feel coming out of this? How do people feel and that goes for any big situation. It's no secret that I went through a massive traumatic event when my ex went blind, and I had to come back from Euro Disney, travel on my own, leave my kid with Emma. That was really super traumatic, and face a life of massive difference compared to what I thought I was going to live. Very, very traumatic for me. and certainly for him and everyone else involved. So trauma and big life experiences, I think is what you're saying, Emma, can lead to change.
Absolutely. For me, yeah, definitely.
Now, I've read a little bit about post-traumatic growth, and I don't know a lot about it, but it's something that I'm quite interested in. And similarly to post-traumatic stress, sometimes when people go through something really, really big, instead of working to get back to the baseline that they were, they go past that. This is like, I'm thinking about, I don't even know if this is true for this person, but the man who does the Great North Run with a fridge on his back, Fridge Man he's called. I don't know his story, but instead of just running the Great North Run, that would be an example. He's thought... Example. He's thought, I'm going to do that with a fridge on my back. I'm not just going to go back to run the Great North Run. I'm going to do even more and even better.
Do you know why I think it is? Because you lose the platform, you lose your baseline. When something's happened for you, whether it's a massive trauma or a global trauma like COVID or whatever, your baseline just disappears completely. I'm just going to
duck out a minute because my phone's ringing.
Okie dokie. Oh my goodness, it's just me. Ooh, what could I say? But I think the thing is, Kate was saying, like Fridge Man, you go back to your baseline. I think with big trauma, I think your baseline disappears altogether. It absolutely implodes, and you haven't got that platform, you haven't got that solid ground to get back to, which in a weird way kind of... Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying, when big stuff happens, you lose your platform, you lose your baseline, it explodes, implodes, it's gone. Nothing's the same anymore. So you don't have to come back to the place that you were.
Right.
And there's something about that gives you more impetus, more traction to not necessarily aim higher, but there is no baseline anymore. I can't really find the word for it, but you can be and do anything now because the baseline's gone.
So there's no framework, there's no structure, there's no sort of expectation really. I think as well, and I'm going to say it, if you've got little people around, you need to cover their ears now or put your headphones in because here it comes. It's the fuck it moment as well, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
It's the fuck it moment, and you think, that I've got the sort of nothing to lose type mentality, and absolutely going for it. So yeah, I agree with you. So all of that said, there's a bit there about trauma, there's a bit there about making big life decisions and changes. So when people have been through this whole big COVID thing, whatever that's looked like for you, because again, there will be people who've been very frightened. There'll be people who've been very angry and frustrated. There will be people who've experienced traumatic loss, intense loneliness. And there will be people who maybe feel totally peopled out and have got awful cabin fever because they've got a big family and no outdoor space and they've been locked in. There's a whole raft of different experiences. And now suddenly we're moving into this thing called new normal. What can we say to people about, what are we doing to cope with that? How are we feeling about that? How are we moving into that new way of being? Because I went out to with my friend for lunch a couple of weeks ago, and as I was getting ready to go out for lunch, and I wrote this actually in a newsletter, so you might have read it already, I felt quite excited and happy about going out and getting dressed and putting some makeup on and stuff like that, but I also felt a little bit anxious. I felt a little bit nervous about it, and it wasn't because I was frightened of getting COVID. It wasn't because the R number's right down, and I wasn't worried about catching it. I think I'm just lacking peopling practice. And I did speak to someone else on the phone at a company that I was using to print something for me recently, and they said that they'd worked in a very hustly bustly environment, and then they were at home working, and although they were fine, they just felt like they weren't going to be good at peopling again. And peopling's like, it's a verb that we use quite a lot, like peopling practice, what's that all about? So for me, it was being with people again, face to face, and that sounds like totally ridiculous. And the other thing that I want to say is, generally speaking, I'm quite confident, and I am a bit odd, obviously, but quite confident and quite resilient and quite capable. You know, I'm using the word quite a lot. I don't want to over egg it. But I've worked from home, but I worked from home anyway. Not a great deal in my day-to-day life changed, yet it still affected me in terms of my confidence with going out and about and doing things with people. So I think about people who've had massive change and how that must have affected them even more. But what do you think?
I think it's really interesting because when Kate sees me take an in-breath, like I've got something to say, she just talks really fast. I didn't finish before she gets interrupted. So I'll tell you about my first official out at the Metro Centre, which is like a shopping complexy thing. I just thought if I could minimise my time in shops and do everything fast, I'd be ultra protected.
Wow, like when you get a bonus on a video game and you've got the bubble around you.
For like 60 seconds. So basically, I was just...
ran around the Metro Centre for 10 minutes, then came home.
Went to 2 shops in a very fast fashion and just basically tried to hold my breath when I went past people. So maybe I took it a little bit too far. It was busier than I expected. I was wildly uncomfortable, desperate for the loo, which was a big challenge because how often are the loos cleaned, you know, and all of that jazz. So I thought it was actually a total anticlimax for me, and it settled me down now knowing that I've done it. It was a hideous experience. And Kate's looking at me now thinking, this is meant to help people. What are you saying? But to be fair, I don't like the Metro Centre anyway, and I don't do that for recreation.
Why did you choose there?
Because I was feeling ballsy, because I was having one of those days.
How's that working for you?
Not well, because I was having one of those days where I thought, yeah, I'm gonna live today, man. You know those memes that say, live today like it was your last, and then you get excited and you think, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go in traffic, I'm gonna go with people. And I just got there and thought, I want to go home. I don't like this. Screw you, meme. So I bought a bra, some matching knickers, 2-3 t-shirts for my partner, and basically just got home as fast as I could.
Wow, go you.
But I have been to an outdoor restaurant 3 times.
When I say go you, I'm not being sarcastic.
I
mean, because actually that was a big thing for Emma to do. And, you know, she has been feeling really, really anxious about going out and peopling. So I've been anxious because I've been feeling a bit rusty and a bit, you know, like, ooh, this is a bit weird. But Emma's been feeling anxious on a whole different level. But she has been outdoors to a restaurant 3 times, as you said. So that's really good. So your strategy sounds to me like it's, apart from the Metro Centre thing, which was clearly a baptism of fire, I presume you've gone back to the building it up gradually plan, have you?
Yeah, definitely. And I've got my level of comfort, and I'm also helping my daughter through that, so it feels like
we've both got teenagers
doing it for her, in pushing her, and let's go into different shops and stuff. But obviously, really, I'm just helping me at the same time, you know. But it makes me brave. I've got my mum pants on, so I can do anything when I've got mum pants on.
So this sounds to me like this is when you do something. So say for example, it's going to be going to the supermarket. Are you trying to stretch that comfort zone every time? Or are you just getting used to going for now?
Both. And what I do is I check in with myself and see how I feel. So on days when I feel ballsy, or I'm stir crazy, or I'm bored, or I've seen that special kind of irritating meme first thing in the morning.
The kind of thing you get on my page, probably.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm feeling like that, I'll do it. And when I'm not, I just allow and embrace what is. But I try and have that forward projection anyway. But you see, the thing is, you look at someone like Carl, who said we've all got this innate drive to self-actualise. So self-actualising is basically just being the vest. It's being the vest.
Being the very best you can be. Be the very best you... Emma's dyslexic. I'll chuck that in now.
Oh, there we go. So be the very best you can be. But that was deliberate. But it's that urge, no matter what stage of life or state of mind you're in, something deep inside of you will always propel you forward to be the very best that you can be. So on days I feel like that and Carl Rogers is alive and well and doing the conga in me, I go with it. And the days that I'm feeling a bit more shite, couldn't think of a word, shite.
That covers it really.
Well, it does, doesn't it? The days when shit's gone
Nobody's
south,
got to Google that and see what it means.
yeah, that everyone knows that one. Shit days, I just stay in or embrace it or do what I need to do in a different way.
So that's really interesting. So although you've kind of got a bit of a plan, a loose plan of building on it and getting out there a bit more and taking baby steps and heading for that best version of you, you also, what I like is you check in with yourself and you make sure that it's okay to do that day, because what can happen if you're not feeling resilient, and that could be based on loads of things. It could be that you haven't slept well, you've had an argument with someone, it could be hormonal, it could be anything at all, could knock you off your perch. If you don't feel great and you've set yourself a target to absolutely go to the Metro Centre and do this and go to 7 shops and have your lunch and do all this and see a film and all this stuff, then you're going to feel like a massive failure if you don't achieve that.
Of course.
And that's going to be wholly unhelpful, because then that's going to give you evidence that I can't do it, I'm rubbish, I'm still in the mindset of being stuck and all the rest of it. So I think it's great to check in with yourself and see how you feel before you push those boundaries.
Definitely. And feeling's everything, because goals and motivation and the
rah-rah
and the 80s haircut, big teeth kind of persona.
Who are you thinking of when you say that?
Tony Robbins, you know it is. I love Tony.
That
kind of motivation is great when you can meet the bar. If you can't, and your self-talk shit and you're a little bit low on resilience anyway, it just becomes a real fuel for getting a bully, and it gives you more evidence that actually it's just a big crap hole. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I like something else that you've seen. It's the general upward trend.
Oh yeah, well, it's like the stock market, isn't it? Or like the COVID numbers down, if you will. There are small peaks and troughs, you know?
Yeah, and I think I like it when you say, don't take, I suppose it's like when you're on a diet, isn't it? Rather than weighing yourself every day or every 2 days, look at it in a month.
Yeah.
Because there is going to be fluctuation day to day, like there is going to be with our mood and our resilience and our energy levels. So it's sometimes more helpful to look at it over a longer period of time. So,
and the other thing as well is, I think, because I do, if you didn't know, and this is going to hit you as a massive irony, I'm a counsellor. I can't say that without laughing. But obviously I've got massive connections with my clients if we're working on anxiety and things like that, which is super helpful and it's a superpower. I'm so grateful for it. No, I'm just kidding. That was just for humour. But what I've noticed as well with a lot of clients at the minute is people have got generally COVID fatigue. And even, whether you're in the camp of following rules, not following rules, whatever, everyone's just done now. It doesn't come down to anymore, I think, with a lot of people, which side of the line you're on or anything like that. We're just done with it and we just want our lives back. But how do you engage with a life that you haven't had for more than 12 months? It's that saying of, I want my life back, but I haven't had it for all this time.
Yeah, I think what's interesting as well is looking at which aspects of life we like better now, and also aspects of life that we could sod off because of the pandemic. Also people we could sod off because of the pandemic, or situations. So I'm saying, for example, the Christmas party. The works Christmas party. Now, this is quite funny to us because the works Christmas party for us would be me and you. I don't think I'd sod that off. I think I'd be all right with that, would you?
I'll keep that, yeah.
I'll keep that. If you work in an office with 50 people or 20 people or maybe even 5 people, 4 of which you might not like, and you're the 5th one, be your own best friend. That's another podcast.
It is.
Then it's probably going to be a relief to you. At Christmas, it was probably a relief to you that you didn't have to accept all of these obligation invitations and do all of this obligation peopling. So that might be something that you want to keep as we come out of this and we head into new normal. It might be that you need to check in with yourself and think, you know what? I don't like Christmas parties.
Well,
and I'm not going to go anymore. And I really don't like them. And that's just one example.
And my Christmas party is actually financial because things like, you know, God bless you if anybody's listening, we don't need to do cousins of cousins of cousins of cousins of aunties of uncles of, and I'm an auntie and not an uncle. That got a bit weird. But do you know what I mean? We had a small, intimate Christmas, and actually, for my inner Taurus money saver,
That was okay.
That was fantastic because I didn't have to shit around.
Yeah, so obligation, and I'm thinking like my ex used to do this thing, right? And it was so well intended and so well meaning, and it was the Easter egg run. And he used to get all of these eggs, these chocolate eggs for nephews and family members, and drive down the country and meet relatives so that we could get our eggs and they could get their eggs. And I suppose it was lovely because he got to see people that he hadn't seen for a while and have lunch and catch up. But it used to take all day, a shit ton of fuel, getting stuck in traffic. And then when he came home and I opened the car boot, they'd sent exactly the same eggs back that we'd sent.
I know.
And you think, so you've driven all the way around the northeast and you've actually brought back the same eggs, which were, you know, the 3 for a tenner ones from Asda, which everybody gets. So, yeah, so the obligation social engagement. So that's one thing that you might want to check in on and think, I don't really want to do that anymore. I'm pleased I didn't have to see so-and-so.
Well, that's the thing. Even if you were allowed to leave the house at Easter, you wouldn't have dared cough on a box.
I know, right?
Happy Easter passed some version
Exactly.
of COVID over. So it was great because we couldn't actually do it. It was foolhardy to try and do it.
But yes, and other people have found, like, during like the lockdown process, they might have discovered a hobby or a craft or gardening.
Did you discover a hobby?
Yes, crochet, you know this?
Ooh.
You know this?
Yes.
Because I was so shit scared about my partner got COVID and I had to quarantine him in the house, God bless him. And I was so shit scared about it. I just crochet. I made about, I think, 14 scarves.
In a fortnight.
Every day there was wool arriving. Every day I was Amazon priming wool. And
I hope you were sanitising it before you opened it.
My parents who I live with were leaving it on the stairs and shouting, "There's another one! There's another one!
There's more wool!"
And I was just coming down. I made a poncho as well. It didn't even stop at scarves. No,
I just worked a lot because I work on call, so I just put loads and loads of hours in and stayed in the office. I didn't hobby. For the first part, I just did loads of hours of work.
That might be something you want to maintain then. Why don't you do some work?
Oh, she's saying this because I technically work for her. I knew it.
No, but what I'm saying is there anything that people found? I mean, some people, the supermarkets run out of flour because people were baking.
I found that really upsetting, you know, that some of the things that I saw, which were the most memorable and upsetting on social media, were empty shelves, and I really panicked about that for everybody, and that was my most emotional point, was thinking some people
aren't going to have enough
or aren't going to be able to get what they need, and I found that massively upsetting. Really
I agree with you, and I would also say that on the flip side of that, I live in quite a small street, and a lot of the people in my street are older, and they went into community mode, and there were like group WhatsApp messages saying, "I've got flour, has anyone, I'm going to Morrison's," or "Does anyone need this?" And they really pulled together as a community. So stuff like that I found very heartwarming, that I would want to retain. And I think as we slip into this new way of being, I think getting back on the hamster wheel and just doing what we used to do would be a shame, because there's a lot that I found out about myself during this thing that's called the Great Pause, a lot of people call it, that I want to take forwards with me, and there's stuff that I discovered about myself that I don't want to do anymore, that I was having to do, like obligation stuff, and actually I don't really want to do that anymore. So yeah, so that's my little self-audit, but I agree in terms of like the baby steps and moving it forward slowly.
Do you think it's literally worth people getting a pen and a piece of paper, 2 columns, and going, keep it, chuck it?
If they want to, yeah, of course.
And just literally writing it down.
Definitely, and it'll give you clarity. Well, you're big into externalising things and writing them down, aren't you?
That was a weird look there, and I'm not sure why. What was your big into? That's like me going, yeah, you and your card deck. What the hell?
Oh,
What's
is that
about?
mockery?
All right, yeah, because I'm big into writing things down.
Therapeutic writing.
No, but it is.
It is good because it externalises it. And I think even just going through the process of having 5 minutes and doing it,
Well, of course.
it'll make stuff come up that you hadn't thought of before. So if we're going to summarise this, what would you say to people in terms of moving into that new normal thing? I would say, I'll give you mine first because she's looking a bit startled. Mine would be to do a little self-audit and think about what it is that you want to keep from lockdown. So was it, a lot of people started to walk as well, didn't they? Was that really good for you? Did you find being in nature very therapeutic? Did your kids love it? I think a lot of people really got back to basics, board games and stuff like that. What do you want to keep? What worked for you? And what do you want to keep moving forward? And how can you keep that or keep a version of it? What did you find during that pause that you were relieved about not having to do? And is there a way that you can maybe set your life up so that you don't have to do that, or you don't have to do as much of it? And also, in terms of what Emma's saying, she's taking baby steps, expand her comfort zone when she feels like it, when she's checked in with herself and it feels okay and safe to do that. But also, you do you. See, my strategy might be a bit different to Emma's. I went straight out for lunch with my friend and that was okay for me, although I felt a little bit eek, but it was actually okay. It took Emma a while to build up to going outdoors to eat, but she's done that 3 times, so now she'll probably move on to phase 2, which might be going inside to eat somewhere. But you do you. I think you need to check in with yourself, as Emma said, and do what feels right to you. And if you still want to wear a mask, if you still don't want to go into someone's house, if you still want to be super cautious, that's up to you. And if you want to throw your mask off and throw caution to the wind and have a sleepover at your best friend's house, that's up to you as well. And I think we need to get out of judging people for what they are doing, because we're all doing our best and we need to find our own lane and stick to that, because you know you better than anyone else. What do you think?
I've got 2 words actually. Dear COVID. Now, in typical MS style with writing, I think we've got this COVID fatigue, we've thought about it, chewed about it, blah, blah, but I want to throw a little challenge out there. No matter how much you think you know about what you think about the last 15, 16 months, however long it's been, get a piece of paper and a pen and just start the letter Dear COVID, comma, and give yourself half an hour on a day when you're not massively busy and whatnot, but no matter what you think you know about your experience of it, just write those 2 words, Dear COVID, and just see what happens. And that usually surprises people, because you can do it about anything, but I would say that as a challenge. If you're listening to this, no matter how well you think you know your experience, just do that and see what happens. And that would be my...
Yeah, and I think as soon as you said that, I thought about the good and the bad.
Of course.
The gifts of it. And also
the losses.
The losses, but the losses give you such contrast in your life that it can push you into gratitude for what you've got.
Sometimes,
what you've got left, or what you've still got, or what you've got to come. So I think that would probably be very, very useful. Yeah, so right, well, we'll wrap it up there. So that's an idea for you to try. If it feels right for you, as always, take exactly what you need and nothing more. And we will see you on the next podcast. If you want to catch up with the other stuff I do, please go over to kate-spencer.com and I'll see you there. Okay.
Oh, and the other thing as well, if you like the sound of Kate and Emma, please go on to Kate's page and have a look at the Life and Soul Academy. We've got a whole bunch of lovely, gorgeous souls, our soul tribe, and we do this sort of stuff and have these chats often and all get together on there. It'd be great to see you there and have some more fun.
Absolutely. Okay, so goodbye for now. You're going to trumpet us out.
Life with soul.
Bye.